Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm very happy to be your host, guilty by my own desires. And today is very early in the morning in Australia for our guest today. His name is Egan. He is the founder of the Egan Times. And so we're going to find out how is he doing today.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
Hello, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's early in the morning here, so I'm really happy.
Yes, I know there is 4 a.m. in the morning. So thank you so much for participating and giving us some of your time. And I know that you have pretty much traveled the world, interview a number of people. And so I want to ask you, how did you start your podcast?
Yeah, so basically during the end of last year, there was the pandemic hit in my area. So basically, I had 2 weeks where I couldn't leave the house. So I'd always interested me interviewing people and meeting new people, and I've met amazing people. So I decided just to start it. So I started from scratch. I reached out to people. I set it up. I contacted a lot of people I knew, and yeah, the rest is history. And now I have my podcast.
So people sometimes they don't know what it goes through the mind of the person that do that podcast. And so for you on a personal level, what is your experience when you are interviewing someone? What is that you learn from that person?
Their story, their background, something new. So I ask questions that that I believe will be relevant to people listening. And for me personally, I understand their story, so I can relate to on some level of what's happened, from start to finish. And you learn something new from every person. So every person's different. Every person has a different personality, a lifestyle, the niche or profession they do. So I've learned so much, and you're always learning every single day.
Well, I know that you have interviewed so many people. Can you share with us, like, what are those fields that those people work in that you have interviewed in the past?
Athletes, politicians, musicians, comedians, music artists, actors, actresses, um,
A little bit of
professionals.
everything.
Yeah, so it's quite broad. So yeah, everyone that I've interviewed is of a different background, or they might be of the same background, but I'm always trying to look for something new as well. So yeah.
So for me, I went and read your bio, and it was something that caught my interest was that your background, is in finances, business, marketing, and telecommunications. And so to turn another to podcast, to make a podcast that is something that was there before when you was younger, they make you decide to make your own podcast.
Yeah, just seeing people interviews and watching interviews when I was younger and throughout my life. And I'm obviously working in the corporate world, working in business. I deal with a lot of high level people, executives I've dealt with, and I've cut deals, and I've managed high level people. So for me, just I guess that experience and seeing interviews and doing interviews in the past has always interested me, and it was something I always wanted to do. I was very passionate about. So yeah, this is obviously fast forward. It was something I always wanted to do. I guess it probably wouldn't have happened as quickly if COVID hadn't hit, but I had all the free time and I was like, all right, I'm just going to make this happen and just do it and jump in.
Well, I think that that's awesome because you use your time in a very productive way instead of, I have nothing to do. You decided to go there and create something new. What is the Need Egan Times now? So, how people can reach you and contact you? For example, I would like to be in the interview. How do you find your guests?
So you can follow me on Instagram at the Nick Egan Times, on Facebook, the Nick Egan Times, and you can also reach out to me via my email. So I'll give that to you later. Where you want to give that to your guests, they
Okay.
can email me too. So yeah.
Oh, that would be wonderful. So I want to talk a little bit about if you would like to share where you come from, where did you grow up, for the people can feel a little bit familiar because it's very interesting. Also, I noticed that I never heard about this sport. You're a bit person that loves sports, and this is a rugby league. What is that?
That's something that I guess it's played in England and Australia and a couple of countries overseas. but it's very big in where I live in Sydney, Australia. And it's something that you grow up with if you're following sports. Rugby league's a passion of mine. I played it when I was younger. And yeah, it's quite popular here in Sydney and the east coast of Australia, especially. So yeah,
Can
that's
you
like something that.
describe a little bit how that sport works, just for our audience learn something new about Australia?
Yeah, okay. How do I describe it? It's similar, I guess, to rugby or NFL, but it's quite
Okay.
faster. It's quite faster. So you tackle, you move the ball around, and basically, you can score a try on each side of the field. And yeah, it's played for 80 minutes. There's about 16 teams in Australia that play for it every week, and they have a professional competition that runs every year. I follow the Manly Warringah Seagulls, so that's my local team where I live, and they've been quite successful over the years as well.
Well, that sounds very intense. But I also wanted to ask you, you had traveled for different countries, all the way to Mexico, even Guatemala, the US. And so I want to know from your experiences, how do you see the world after going into knowing more about new cultures?
It's definitely changed my perspective on life. Previously, obviously, before I traveled, I probably have a different outlook to life. Going to all the countries I've traveled to, I've learned a lot. Seeing cultures like Mexico and Mexican, you see that how life is, how different people live, how great people are, how amazing people are, how it's changed my perspective of not taking anything for granted. Living in Sydney, Australia, I have it pretty good. We live in a first world country. So when you go to countries that might not be as rich as you really learn to appreciate the value and the meat of life that you have and what's been given to you. So it's definitely changed my perspective. As one thing I've learned is not to take anything for granted and be really appreciative and humble with everything that I have in my life.
Well, that is very inspiring, because yes, it's different perspectives for where we live, and even though, like, for example, the US is very close to Mexico, some of the people, they have not traveled to Mexico, and is, for example, in LA is just 3 hours away from the border of Tijuana. So maybe, when people go out there in different countries and experience different cultures, is more knowledge, and you learn a lot more from that perspective. So there is something that you want to share with our audience about your career. Where is the future? And of course, I had to ask you about your desires, since you are in the show Guilty by My Own Desires.
Yeah, definitely. I've worked. I have a lot of experience. I've been working for a long time now. This podcast is something that I enjoy. It's a passion. It's a hobby, I guess, too, as well. So when you do that, you keep the momentum of it going. I wake up every morning excited doing it, meeting someone amazing and new. So I believe that for the future, where that lies is being consistent, keeping the momentum going, and hopefully, yeah, like it becomes extremely successful. I have 1 million followers, and it takes me to a great place in life, which I can already see is happening. I'm on a great trajectory with it currently, so that's probably where it's at. My future, what my future looks like.
Well, what do you love about the podcast? There is something
Um,
that you love, because now we're doing like an interview and it's video and all the stuff, but the podcast is a little bit different, because you never know who is behind the microphone. So it's like the voice. And so, how is your experience?
I guess from talking to people on the phone in my corporate career, it's always something that I'm used to, not generally seeing people as much. I guess now with COVID you do. I love hearing people's voices. I love the storytelling of it as well. So when you're talking to someone, interviewing someone, the story of it and hearing their voice really puts it together. So I think it also uses your imagination when hearing a podcast. If you can't visibly see the person, you also think in your head what it looks like and how it feels, and you can relate to them maybe on another level with your imagination when they're telling the story. So that's why I love the podcast, and I think the podcast also can help people when they're driving in their car. They can listen to it when they have some spare time and they've got some free time. It's a very leisure based niche, I guess, for podcasts. It's becoming extremely popular. If you look at the percentages, everyone's starting to get into them now, listening to them. It's a really exciting time to have a podcast.
Yes, I think that after the pandemic, they just kind of blew up, blew,
Yeah.
and a lot of people got into the podcast because I never seen before like a higher rate just going. Even my company, we started doing the virtual interviews through video because I mean you cannot go to the studios. We're in lockdown. And then you find out ways to continue moving forward. And I think that is the part about being creative. And if you are creative with your time or what you do every day, and then the ideas just start kicking in, and then you decide, well, I'm just gonna work on this thing and this thing, and making happen this. Some of the stuff that I learned from people during this pandemic was also the like yourself, you started your podcast, and you was telling me that you started in December, and so for other people they started writing books, and now we have like a lot of authors that perhaps it was not the time before. So how did you took the approach of COVID into your career?
I guess it made you adapt. If there's one thing I could say for me personally, I had to adapt throughout the time, professionally and personally. It gives you a lot of time. It's given you a lot of time for me personally to think about life and where I'm going and what I'm doing, what the future looks like. So for the generalized, I guess, position of it, it's really made me have to adapt and change and, learning new stuff. I've learned so many new things, even with the podcast that I never knew existed. So you learn so much. Yeah.
Well, can you share one of those things that you learned that you didn't know that were there?
I guess if I can probably say it's probably the whole basics of the podcast. I had no experience doing it. So starting from scratch in a 2 week period, like learning how to get the distribution of it, get it all out there.
Yeah.
Doing it by yourself too in such a short period, getting all the marketing, reaching out to people, meeting people. Yeah, like it was just all, I guess, a massive new experience. And, to see where I've come in 3 months, 4 months, it's amazing. It's crazy. Like, I'm extremely proud of myself to have done what I've done in such a short period.
Well, that is so excited, and that's why I wanted to interview you, because the audience needs to know this. It needs to know that all the things that you can do with your time. And for example, like, what was one of the difficult things or a challenge that you might encounter while doing your podcast?
There's a few things. The recording not going well, so the recording might break the internet. So if you're interviewing, people overseas, it's out of your control. The internet will break down, so you have to restart again. What else?
So it's not that easy, like you can see, right? Like, oh, you're just gonna do the podcast and it's just going to be all perfect. Because before I was also having issues, technical issues with the audio. I buy multiple microphones, lavaliers, earbuds, and something was wrong. Well, I discovered was something wrong with my computer.
Yeah, there's just things that are
Yeah,
completely out of your control that
yeah.
like even the smallest thing can happen. Your computer can turn off. The smallest things can just change the whole dynamic, and you have to start from scratch again.
During this time also, one of the things that I've been dealing with is that when people is telling me, oh, I don't have electricity or it just cut off. I don't know if it is because there's tons of people on the internet right now, or things are changing, the way that we are using the media, the way that we are interacting and we're communicating. I mean, so many things, like you say, we have to adapt in our work, in our lifestyle. It's not as easy for some, but I think that if we can be creative, like yourself, and do something new, that would bring us a lot of joy and happiness.
Yeah, 100%. And also for the future as well, it's going to open doors and new experiences for you. Like, I've met you. Like, how amazing is that? 4 months ago, would have been a dream. Now it's happening. So, like, just life, if you can adapt and you can do something new and throw yourself in the deep end, it can open new doors for you, and it can open a new life for you as well down the track, if that's something you truly want. So I'm just humbled to have met so many amazing people already.
Well, and I am humbled, to meet you and that you giving us your time today here. And so I want to remind the audience I'm with Nick Egan today. He's the founder of the podcast, the Nick Egan Times, and he interview all the way from politicians, people in the entertainment fields, and well, there is a number of people, and just the list go on. So, but you can find him on the Instagram. And Nick, I want to go back with you a little bit into what has been for you the most important of the transition. And then, I mean, your career is so extensive. You have done the business, the marketing, the telecommunications, the podcast. I mean, what is your burning desire of continue for your future?
To definitely keep the podcast going. I want to open businesses in the future as well. So I'm really, I guess, entrepreneurial side of things. I'm really interested, which I've got experience doing. So that's something that down the track is that I'm working on as well. I guess, yeah, opening businesses, traveling a lot. So when the restrictions are lifted, it's a passion of mine traveling. I can't get enough of it. So I definitely want to travel. It excites me, meeting new people as well that way. So they're probably all the things for the future. That's my burning desire. Definitely to have my own businesses, keep the podcast going, and traveling. They're my three main pillars, I guess, for the future and burning desires.
Well, Nick, thank you so much. I know today you say you learn one thing new for every interview of people that you meet. And like, for example, I learned today about the sports, the rugby league. So I'm very curious to go and check that sport out. But there is anything that you would like to share to the audience?
Uh, guess just listen to my podcast if you can. Follow me. It's interesting. You learn something new, and yeah, it's an exciting time to listen to it. I believe with podcasts being so popular.
Well, I would like to ask you also. Looks like that you was able to adapt very well into everything that happened. What you will say to the people that, for example, are still a little bit struggling with the situation that we're locking down, we are not locking down. It's like a ping pong again at the moment.
I guess just ride it out. The storm's going to finish soon. I believe personally, with the vaccine coming and getting rolled out across the world, it's already happening here in Australia. I believe there's light at the tunnel. I believe life will start to get back to normal. I guess it'll probably never be exactly the same. And I guess there's two reasons for that, I believe. Because we've already had to adapt with going online, doing these kind of visual and podcasts and interviews like that. That's already changed the momentum of life. But I believe in the next in the future, I couldn't give a timeline on it, but I believe that life will go back to normal. Things will start to happen again. And I believe we'll come out the other side a lot better and a lot smarter. And you really, for me personally, appreciate the smaller things you have in life. Not even being able to leave your house. If you said that 18 months ago, you would have been like, "You're crazy." That's just something you can do. Now at times you weren't able to do that. You really appreciate just being outside in the sunshine and talking to people, socializing with people, meeting people. So I believe definitely in the future things will start to get back to normal, and I believe we'll come out as a community and as a race a lot stronger.
Well, I love that message. I think it's very inspiring because we are still growing as a community, and I would say as a global community, because I think that we all feel related of what's happening, and we are all learning to live with each other. But Nick, it was very, very wonderful to be with you today. I know that it's very early for you in the morning in Australia. And you was able to make it, so I'm so thankful for the time that you're giving us today on that show. I would like to ask you again one more time for your social media for that people can find you.
Okay, so on Facebook, facebook.com, the Nick Egan Times, so TheNickEgan Times, TIMES, and on Instagram at the Nick Egan Times as well. You can follow me and like it there, yes.
And I will ask you for the links for it. We can put it also as well. So that would be good. So again, our Heart Hollywood audience, Thank you so much for watching this interview. And I will put the Nick links below for you can find him, you can contact him. His podcast is amazing. He constantly is interviewing more people, but it's also growing. So I'm very happy that you're doing this for the community, Nick. And now we are connected.
Yeah, and I just want to say you're doing amazing too. I think you're doing wonderful things as well. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Nick. So
Pleasure.
bye bye.
Bye bye.